a reconciliation document earlier today. And if you want, we'll just walk through. As you know, at the last meeting, the school committee approved the budget with a $1,297,349 increase from city appropriation. When the city voted on the budget, it was level funded. Recently, as recently as Monday, but we had heard like last week that there was going to be some additional state aid that the House put in on top of what the governor's recommendation was. And that additional revenue is laid out here for you. So I'll start with the top. The revenue, the first line says the revenue the school committee approved on April 12th was 132,326,514. We take a reduction of 1,297,349 from our revenue for the revenue that we did not get from the city appropriation. In addition, the school choice categorical, there was a decrease of $8,000. And the additional state revenue enacted on June 27th, which was Monday, was $3,254,100. That amount comes from a one-time add. What had happened was when they calculated the formula, what they were doing is reverting back to the highest of the last 3 years for enrollment, for poverty funding, and then in addition, the state share ratio, which is a percentage on how you calculate the funding formula. They had gone back to the highest, which was 0.803. So with that being said, with our enrollment, our average daily membership, and our poverty membership, we were given an additional 3.2 million. Keep in mind that if that is not given to us next year, which it probably will not be, depending on the demographics and how the funding, how we fare, that state share ratio fluctuates when they calculate each year. It's somewhat, because we have a large enrollment, it affects us. As you can see, the change was not that great, but our enrollment numbers too were higher in 20. So that said, this only allows us to say, okay, if they go back to what 20, we see next year will be 24. If our numbers are down, our enrollment numbers and our poverty numbers are lower, then we'll obviously not get a share of this 3.2 million. In addition, there could be in the core pupil, there's a number that's assigned to that. That could be recalculated. It is every year or every few years. I'm not really sure exactly when they do that, but we may see, because of everything is higher cost of living, we may see that go up, but I don't know for sure right now. I just wanted to make that statement that 3.2 is not a forever part of our funding formula. So with that said, the new number for recommendation to the school committee for approval this evening is $134,275,265. So again, we get down to the bottom, and then we start with the same number, which is the balance number of 132,326,514. We've had an increase in charter above our original increase, and this is mainly due that 235,349 is due to a larger number. I had received an email after the budget was passed that East Providence had taken more students than we had planned for. Plus, it was about a $10 difference across the board what our share of the charter school and state school fundings were, and then the recalculation of what it costs per pupil to send the students to East Providence, North Providence, Burrillville, Smithfield, to those CTE programs. So that number is 235,349. Amazon Business Prime subscription, $350. That is an add to the budget. They had reached out to me earlier in the year, and I said, you know, not this year, not this year. And then they reached out to me about a month ago, and I looked at it, and that $350 gets us free shipping on Prime, just like your personal accounts do. It's not every single thing, because we know, like my daughter will always say, oh, I ordered something like a shipping. Well, not everything's Prime and free shipping. So we spent about $1,100 on shipping just last year on things that were not free. So the $350, I thought if we could add that in, that would be great, and it would be a savings to us. An adjustment to the liability insurance policy, it came in at $20,873 lower when I got the actual number. I'm adding back $100,000 in electricity because we took a deep discount, and I did get a phone call the other day. There's some new legislation out there. We are locked in. We did a contract for direct energy for our supply of electricity. However, Winters was not part of that because Winters was not built then. So with that being said, they had mentioned to me that there's a huge increase. So our rate was something like 7.1 per kilowatt. Today, if we were to lock in, it's like 11.65. So although it's probably not 100,000 more for the usage, but the Winters building is much bigger than it was before. So I put back in 100,000. Additional funds for capital safety, capital and safety improvements to schools. As you know, that the Rhode Island Department of Ed requires us to have a percentage of capital in our budgets. We always make the number because we have a lot of projects going on, and we will for the next few years, but we really should put in the operating budget, as they would like to see, is improvements for our capital. Those are always the first things when we're balancing the budget. We've attempted to do that a few years back, and the first things to get cut are those things. Those are for things like fencing, any kind of improvements for safety, such as windows or whatever it case. It's not a lot of money, but we have to start somewhere. So I know that John mentioned to me that there was a fence in one of the schools that he's interested in replacing next year. So we earmarked, and again, it's other improvements. Could be improvements to playgrounds. It could be, different kinds of equipment. We would vote on it, but right now to put it in like a capital improvement line. The next one is addition of funds for school grounds upkeep above the standard that we put. A lot of times schools will, the playgrounds have like mulch and they have some flower beds and stuff like that. And so it's expensive, but again, kids are using it daily. So, the grounds are, they get worn out, or just like in mulch gardens at home, they're worn out. So we do have some, but sometimes the PTOs actually replenish that. So we earmark 50,000. It's not for any specific thing. It could be for any kind of grounds upkeep. It could be for, again, just like the other capital, like safety equipment or things like that, 50,000. And then for the district, we had some money in the classroom and office furniture for the district. We know that's expensive. We had 25,000. I'm asking to add 36,494. Ask why it's an odd number, because the 494 was the bottom line balance. So I put it in that line if you approve it. The Rhode Island Link database, that's the school library, RILink. All of the schools participate. When we submitted the budget, we had 22 numbers. We hadn't received them, and I believe it was like a 3% increase. So that's about $761 to add to the budget. And then District iReady curriculum. This was funded by RIDE this current year. We had heard word that it would be funded again. It still has not been confirmed. We did not budget it, obviously, because we really didn't have room to budget it, and we were hoping for RIDE to support the program again. However, just in case, we put the 140 in there. If that does not happen and RIDE chooses to fund it again this year, we'll come back to the committee asking either, it'll be a savings, or if there's another area of the budget that the committee wishes to put that money towards. So the subtotal for the operation expense changes is $742,081. The next section is the salary and the benefits. So we had a reduction in the workers' compensation annual renewal, 68,583 than I had budgeted. So we had those are based on claims, and then they actually had we had a year that was higher drop off. We do expect that another year next year could come on that might be a little bit larger, that could increase us, but for this year we have a 68,583 decrease. Increase in ESY staff. Breakage. from that number to try to balance down. So we really had less than the 2%. When the actual numbers came in, Blue Cross used our standard rate that we used last year. They started from that point and they said it would be a 4.6. With that being said, the number putting the 4.6 in is 304,617, and the reduction in medical breakage, which is an add back of that 600, we put 400 back right now. Net adjustments to contract renewals with ER employer fringes is 96,012. We had anticipated raises in for contracts and also non-union, but the contracts that have been renewed thus far in total is 96,012 with the fringes. Increase in class coverage stipends with the employer fringes 199,153. This is due to the struggle with finding substitutes, and so the students are split up, as you may know, and the classes are paid on a per student for coverage. So we went extremely over this year, but we did, we had some breakage and some savings in the budget, so we were able to absorb that easily. And then the increase in overtime substitute pay with ER fringes, we had some overtime that went a little bit over, so we increased it. Plus, we had a union contract settlement where callbacks have an additional hour on them, so that's calculated in there. The substitute pay, the reason the substitute pay, and that's what the majority of this is increasing, is because although we can't find substitutes, if you remember, we had originally had in place COVID sub rates. I know it expires on June 30th, but to protect ourselves, we know that districts are still struggling, so I wasn't sure if that would be renewed or what it would be. But anyhow, even though we struggled, we did go over in our subline, or we were close. So now is the time to put that money in. So with that being said, the additional cost there is 1,206,670. That would balance out the budget, and we would have a balanced budget that we could then, if the school committee approves it, present. We wouldn't present, but we would send it down to the city to let them know that we have now balanced, which we are required to do by law, the budget. This does not include any job assignment changes, moves. Those things just recently took place. We have some open positions that have some anticipated steps or levels of pay in there. That does not include any of those yet. We will probably have those as we usually do in August. Those, or once they come back, they get reviewed, they have to go into a system. And then again, just finding this out that it was firm on Monday did not give us time to get all of those moves in. So there still could be some other changes. There might have been some other minor ones, but we have to balance the budget within 30 days of, I believe the state passing the budget, but also our city, which they passed it on June 7th or 8th, somewhere around there. So we're in the timeline.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Then a motion to approve the revisions to general budget by Ms. Manola, was seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Questions? Discussion. Oh, Mr. Larrabee, sorry.
All right. So essentially, this right here that we're approving is this budget is higher than the budget we originally approved about a month or two ago.
Correct. It's higher because we got that, we were asking for our appropriation increase of 1.297, and we put some things back, but we got 3.2. So we're earmarking it in those other areas. Ms. Gray?
I want to thank you for, adding, and I know we had spoken about this previous, additional funds for groundskeep and, things for that could include taking care of playgrounds and things like that. Unfortunately, if you go around and you see some of the equipment, unfortunately, some of it hasn't been taken care of, and the money has to be found someplace to, fix that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like our school buildings, we need to have a fund or something to make sure that we take care of these things. So I appreciate you looking out for us, and for the children, that they can have some safe playgrounds and landscaping and things like that. So thank you.
Thank everyone that get everybody's input, so you're welcome from everyone.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Lucy, please call the roll.
Ms. Spinola.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marina. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. I think I've been for a while. The next one is Blue Cross Stop Loss Renewal 2022 to 2023.
Okay, so as you know, every few years, the school department in the city, underneath, we belong to the Rhode Island Municipal Insurance Corporation, which is an insurance collaborative group that was started a number of years ago, and Pawtucket has been a member about 8 of my 9 years here. We have, the city is recommending a renewal with Blue Cross of Blue Shield Rhode Island. The policy is set at a $300,000 claim cap per individual and an additional 300 aggregate before insurance can be used. The cost is $37.10 per policy subscriber per month. The monthly stop loss rate is a factor in developing the medical working rate. So that 37 is not attached to everyone. What they do is they break it out and we apply to the working rate a number for individual and a number for family. It's a blended. So the 37 is a blended.
Then a motion to approve Blue Cross Stop Loss Renewal, Ms. Miller, and seconded by Mr. Marino. Discussion. Ms. Liston, please take a roll call vote.
Ms. Spinola.
Yep.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marina. Ms. Doobie.
Yes. The motion carries 5-0. The next item is the RIAA catering agreement.
As we have in previous years, since Rhode Island Alternative Academy has been within the Pawtucket School District and servicing Pawtucket students, they use Aramark for the food service. However, they are considered a private school. And so just like we do for some of the summer catering agreements that we enter into to generate revenue for the program, we have one here for Rhode Island Alternative Learning Academy. We approved the same agreements in FY 18, 19, 20, and 21, but we did not need an agreement in 22. We really didn't need it in 21, but we didn't know at the time when we approved it. So students in those years ate free under the either the summer food service program or the SSO, which is what we did last year. So we're asking for an annual agreement with Rhode Island Alternative.
Then a motion to approve by Mr. Larrabee, was seconded by Ms. Spinola and Ms. Grant. Ms. Devine, so I see in this that it says that at this time, Rhode Island Alternative Academy will not be purchasing breakfast to start the school year. I thought universal breakfast was, I mean, I know that they're not under our purview, but is that odd for a school to not be serving a universal breakfast to students? I mean, because I know we have Pawtucket students who go there.
Right. So no, because they're not part of the National School Lunch Program, their breakfast wouldn't fall under our, that is Pawtucket's, and they're a private school, so they're no different than any like private school around here. They do not participate in our school lunch program. That's why we set them up as a catering. The reason they don't have breakfast is they can pretty much choose to do breakfast on their own because they were a private school. So they choose not to, they would have to enter into a catering agreement with us.
Okay.
So that's why we have, the breakfast meal would be $2.85 and $4 for the lunch, but they choose not, in other words, they wouldn't be eligible to get it free.
Okay.
They were going to use it. So they do sometimes purchase it, but they have it in here to do that, but they don't have to.
Okay.
You know, there's some days that they might do a special breakfast that they do for their students, and they don't claim, they can't claim food or anything like we do and get reimbursed, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Liston, please take a roll call.
Ms. Spinola.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marina. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. The next item is approval of budget transfers.
The budget transfers for this, there are two budget transfers. The first one is building operations for $250,000 to support investment in the new playground at Curvin. While we don't know the outcome of the playground at Curvin, there was talk at a previous meeting about a CDBG, the block grant that the city gets, but it hasn't been finalized. So if I may say that if the school committee does approve this, we could approve it with the intent that if it does not come to fruition with the grant, or it is done some other way, this money could be repurposed by the school committee. It just would be earmarked if the school committee is willing to put that aside for now. But it's not locked in. You could take another vote and use it for some other item that you choose to, or improvement or equipment, or however you would like to do. Again, this was on the previous meeting, and we are not at a point where any new playground at Curvin is currently happening, but we would like to reserve some funds if the school committee would like to do so. And the second one is, even though it's under the amount of requirement to come to the school committee, we'd like to come to the school committee for the $4,828 for back order of some tech equipment. Hirsch had ordered some equipment in March, first week of March to be exact. And they assured us that it would be in by June. So it's not here. It's now looking like Hirsch August. And yeah, around August. So we would like that we have the purchase order in there, and we would like to move those funds over so that we can continue the purchase under the funding that we had earmarked for this year. And that was it.
So a motion to approve the two budget transfers by Ms. Manolo. It's been seconded by Ms. Grant and Ms. Marino. Ms. Grant.
The $250,000 from transportation, where does that come from?
So it's really from, it's funny, transportation this year, we had a huge reduction in the statewide transportation, and I'm not really sure why. I don't know if a lot of students that took statewide maybe didn't participate, but they bill you each month based on the usage and the comparability of who you share the buses with. So if you have a bus that, you use and there's no other students on it, you typically fund the whole, you fund the whole bus. But for some strange reason, we have a significant decrease this year. This is the first time I'm seeing that, so I'm not really quite sure what's going on with that. Lynn, Christina, and I are planning to get together this summer to review the changes. I know that they had there's a position now at RIDE they just recently filled, but for the most part, there was really no one internal at RIDE overseeing. There was someone overseeing it, but it was at a high level. So they've now hired somebody who actually has a transportation background, which can actually probably reinforce some of the things, because it is operating, I think, differently, I hear, from what it used to. And so I'm not really sure, maybe if they're billing, I don't want to say this if they're billing us properly, but in looking at it, it looks like there's been less students that were being billed. So again, I don't know how they're getting to school.
So, Melissa, I don't know if this is a question for you. And not that I don't want the money to go to a new playground, but I'm just wondering if these funds for transportation should be reinvested into the department. More staff, more people, more training, making people more aware of things. It's not a huge amount of money, but it just seems like with a lot of the busing issues that are going on nowadays, that it might be something, maybe we could find the money someplace else.
Sure, I mean, we certainly can look at that if that's training that you're needing, us staffing. So without doing the analysis with the transportation department this summer and seeing why, and maybe reaching out to RIDE and asking them about I mean, it's a considerable decrease that I'm looking at, and I don't know, are they more efficient? What are the kids doing? But it's a good point about training, or more staff would. So when you have a one-time number, you would want to use it for one-time expenses such as a training program, maybe earmark some money. Funding staff would have to be incorporated into the operating budget, because that would be, unless you're hiring a third-party temporary staff, it would be for some help to get some things in place, but I think that, with the whole COVID and the changes and stuff, and the fact that, we can look at this and see and then come back and then make a decision on that.
Like I said, I definitely want to see the playground at Carmen, but I think at this point, like you mentioned earlier, we're so early in the discussion on it and how we're going to go about on it. And I just think that there are a lot of transportation issues out there. And I think training is such a huge thing. And, I don't know if there's other places in the budget that have overages that we could transfer the money. But I have to be honest with you, myself, I think busing, emergencies, children getting stranded and things like that, that the funds for the transportation department would probably be best used in that department. And then we could maybe find the money someplace else.
So one of the
Can I,
things,
can I just clarify, just for all members, just to make sure. So this is a transfer from our past year's budget, correct?
the year that we're finishing.
That
up
we're
today.
finishing in today?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yeah.
So the transfer is to capital and it's not necessarily earmarked for something yet. So it will go into capital and could be used for anything.
Well, we have it listed,
capital.
right, we have it listed as the playground, but if you'd like to vote and say that you want to generalize it and then
Yeah.
come back, just to have it there. But what I was gonna
Mhm.
say, if we find out in, a
Mhm.
couple weeks that Ryder's gonna support the iReady, that
Yeah.
could be a place, or we could find, make a budget adjustment when I come back in August, when all of the positions, get modeled in, and see if there's any more breakage, and we could also incorporate it then on what the school committee would like to see in the transportation department, whether it be for training or whatever you choose, because we are going to come back in August and revisit once we get all the job assignment moves in place.
So I would actually like to withdraw the motion that I made
Mhm.
and move to approve the transfer for the technology department,
Mhm.
period.
So Ms. Pinel's withdrawn her motion and move to approve the technology purchase service. There's been a second by Ms. Grant. Any discussion on that one transfer?
So I just want to let you know that this money will, after tonight, is not available until the audit is done, and it
Yeah.
would fall to the bottom in a surplus, a part of what would be the savings, so we wouldn't be able to use this.
Yeah, that's what I'm sorry, that's what I wanted to clarify, that this is money that, as of tonight, it's the end of this budget. So the money, and that's, I think what I was trying to say is, it can't be transferred into a line item, as in it can't be transferred into transportation, because that budget is closing tonight. It has to be transferred into capital, and then from capital, it could be transferred into 2022, 2023 budget. Am I correct?
Correct, right,
Okay.
and like I said,
Okay,
you don't-
I
you
just
can
wanted
change
to-
the number, you can change what you want to use it for, you can,
But-
but I just wanted you to know that once the year closes, as we do, is you have to wait until the audit is done. If there's any surplus at the bottom, is then that's when you transfer to capital, which will be in January.
But motion to approve one aspect is on the table. Is there any discussion on approving the technology purchase service? Ms. Listy, please take.
Ms. Pinello.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marina. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. Ms. Pinello.
Now I would like to make a motion to take the 250,000 and put it into capital without the stipulation that it go to a playground, to be determined for future use for the needs of our students.
Been a motion from Ms. Pinello to transfer the 250,000 into capital. It's been seconded by Ms. Marino. Thank you, Ms. Pinello. Any discussion on this second transfer? Mr. Larrabee.
Just quick question on the timeline for the playground. Was it, yeah, what is the timeline on it?
So the time, again, it's the time, go ahead. Yeah, of course.
So, we had a meeting last week and, what we found out in the meeting last week was we didn't really know a lot about what this grant was. So myself, Melissa, Mr. Ramsey, Mr. Charbonneau being the chair of facilities, are meeting again tomorrow morning. Mr. Cody. So what we did was there are a lot of playgrounds in our district that need a lot of work to them. There's one at Curtis. I know we just had one at Cunningham. Varia doesn't have a playground. They have a playground for the city. So when we met last week, we discussed that we were going to have inventory of our playgrounds, kind of see what's needed, which ones are handicapped accessible, what would be needed to make them, and then we kind of start from there. So, so really what we were going to do is kind of analyze the whole thing and kind of figure out what our playgrounds need. And then we were going to come up, we had brought we're going to bring Mr. Charbonneau in, so we could decide how we might take this forward. Is this going to be a facilities thing? Is it going to be a special education thing? Is it something that we're going to work combinedly together? So we are still at the beginning process of this. So from what we did find out, I did find myself walking away from the last meeting in regards to the playground was a few teachers had mentioned from 2.5 years ago. So I guess they had received this grant a couple years ago, but it was never paid out to them. And because they kept saying it was promised to them, it was promised. It's like, we were on the committee, who promised it to them? So I guess they had gotten the grant and it had gone, it was a community grant through the city. And then there was discussion, I believe, between the superintendent and Mrs. Depot that they might start fundraising and things like that. So I think we have a lot to go through because a lot of our playgrounds in our district, the PTOs, the schools in general, have always contributed or have done some fundraising for it also. So I think we kind of have to figure out first, you know, what direction we want to go in, how much our committee, what can be brought to the committee to be approved for this, and then kind of bring the schools in and be like, okay, do you guys want to fundraise or this and that? I know Potter Burns was a fundraiser with their PTO. Yep, Curtis was a fundraiser way back then. So there's still a lot of particulars that have to be worked out onto it. It's just very at the beginning. And I think, you know, to get in a playground, and they have great land over there. And I think we need to take advantage of this. This is my opinion. But to get a really good playground and make it accessible, it's very, very expensive. And we also want to make sure that it's maintained. So these are a lot of the things that we're looking at to make sure. I know when we had the meeting last week, you know, they had the pictures. You know, there was also a picture of all the accessibility things. Those were all extra. And, you know, if you buy a pair of pants for a typical child, it's $5. When you buy a pair of pants for a child with special needs, it's $25. So those items will be very expensive, but I do think it's only fair to all of our students that if we're going to plan this and do this playground, that we do it the best possible way. So like I said, we're at the beginning stages, and I think we have a small group looking into particular things, so then we can take it to a subcommittee. And then from the subcommittee, once the details are all figured out, we can bring it to the full committee. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. You know, we're in the middle of or at the end of COVID. Everyone knows it's hard to get supplies and everyone knows what the process is in regards to planning. But our intention is, to build this school up, to build this playground, but our intention is also to take a look at our other playgrounds also, to make sure that they're accessible, make sure that they're well kept. So there's a lot to look at. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And thank you for that. And yeah, I'm in favor of this motion. I think the one thing I don't know if it's a slight concern, but I will mention is as this community has found a way to potentially make a playground work and get moving in that process, and as they've been waiting for years to get it done as well. I just would hate for bureaucracy a little bit to tie things up and slow things down a little too much, or get too much into the weeds of everything else that is going on, while this community has really sought this out and has found a way to make it happen. But yeah, no, I agree. We need to make sure that we're doing what is best for our students, and we're really fully vetting the entire process and making sure that the product we move forward with is something that is acceptable for all.
Ms. Vanilla?
So, thank you for your due diligence. And I do believe that the funds in the transfer should be equitably spent on our students. But if you would you please get the expiration date of the block grant? So we know that we don't, because ordering is going to be X amount of months. So we don't want to miss it by a month or 2 months. So we need first the expiration date, and that will be able to guide you forward.
We're like I said, we're meeting tomorrow, and like I said, I think one of the things was when we first met at our first meeting, there weren't a lot of details about what this grant was. So like I said, we had given out some assignments, and one of them was Assistant Superintendent Ramsey to find out, touch base with the city, and for Mr. Cody and Mr. Silver to kind of do an inventory of the playgrounds, to see what we have, to see what we're dealing with, to know what we're dealing with so we can move forward. Just so you know too, and it's kind of, I appreciate your comments and everything, Steve. We definitely don't want to hold this up. And a couple of years ago, when they were told about the playground from their principal, the funds were never given to them. So at that time, I don't believe it was the school committee that held up that. It wasn't the school committee that held up the process. The grants from that, the funds from that grant were never given or paid. So that's what it seems like. Now it's kind of being paid forward, and this is where it's going to be. But I think we do want to make sure we do it right, and we want to make sure all of our children do it. And I think one of the things we did is we wanted to figure out how this grant money was earmarked. So then we could kind of figure out, what's the best way to spend it, how quickly do you have to spend it? Because if, for example, it wasn't earmarked for Kearvin and we only had a year to do it, we do have a lot of playgrounds that really could use that. And you wouldn't want to rush the Kearvin playground, because we do want to make it the best that it can be, and we want to make sure. So hopefully tomorrow we will, get the information that Ms. Bonolo stated, and we can just kind of continue from there, and hopefully continue to keep meeting, moving forward, and kind of progressing up the ladder.
Ms. Vanilla?
Will you put an update on the next agenda, please?
Mrs. do you please make a note to place this on the work session agenda as a discussion action item? Kearvin playground or playground. Ms. Vanilla, playground and block grant. There's a motion to approve the 250,000 to be transferred to capital. It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on this? Ms. Leslie, please call the roll.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee, Mr. Marino, Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. The next is Ride Arts Initiative, MOA, School Building Authority Capital Fund. Ms. Devine.
So in working, Mr. Pimentel, who has been awarded $260,527 towards the Ops program. Ryan is dedicated to supporting the local schools as they rebuild and strengthen their Ops program, which include mental health and help connect students to their creativity and passion in their learning environment. The scope of the initiative includes projects that enhance culinary arts, performing arts, visual arts, music, and design to ensure that learning spaces are used optimally. Schools can use funding to purchase items such as musical instruments, auditorium upgrades, artists and residents, murals, sculptures, professional development, individual sponsorships, audiovisual, culinary equipment, and other investments that provide high-quality art education. Funds are required to be used by June 30 of 2023. The allocation was determined, so they left it up to the district, so we did the best thing we knew how, is we distributed it based on enrollment percentage at each school. And we obviously made the movements in all schools that have been adjusted due to the closure of Walden and movement street. So we took that into account by this year's enrollment. The cost of music playing for each elementary was deducted from the total amount as well as funding for 3 of our elementary schools to participate in Disney in the classroom. Walden already is one of them. So before that, we asked that you approve, sign off on the Arts Initiative grant, SBA capital fund.
And Ms. Devine, to clarify, we are approving that we are accepting the money that RIDE is giving us, and then at a future meeting, we will approve the projects that are associated
Yes.
with this money, correct?
Right, I'll talk to Rico when he gets back, but, what we did is we asked, he had sent out, spreadsheets through Mrs. Ramsey, myself, and we are seeing them float in. I think I received, maybe 5 or 6, various different things that they all look great, music items, music instruments, and things like that. So with that being said, I mean, we certainly can come by, back to the committee with the final list of what they want to do. And then, of course, we always follow the purchasing and procurement
Thank you.
regulations and laws.
Motion to approve by Ms. Manolo, seconded by Ms. Grant. Mr. Larrabee, Ms. Manolo.
Question, you have culinary arts on there? Now, how would we do that?
So I'm going to let the superintendent speak to that because I think that's a future CTE that they're expanding on. And out of my,
Yes,
No,
so
understand-
we are
understand it, I
looking
guess.
to start, it's not a CTE yet, but we're looking to start a pathway in September for culinary arts at Shed. Shed.
Thank you.
And the motion to approve, it's been seconded. Ms. Leslie, please call the roll.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee,
Yes.
Mr. Marino, Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. And please, Ms. Liz, before anyone leaves today, just make sure that you sign this paper. It does need all 7 school committee signatures to go to RIDE. The next item is approval of Pitney Bowes agreement for replacement postage machines at Admin, Shea, Tolman.
So the Pawtucket School Department currently has 3 postage machines in the district. 2 are located at, one is located at central office, one is at Shea, and one is at Tolman. Tolman and Shea each process their own mail because they obviously have a significant amount. It's not uncommon for smaller schools to send their mail through our courier because he's out there daily, sometimes twice daily, picking up the mail. We run it through our postage machine and then charge it to the location appropriate under the new co-op. The machines that are currently out there right now are from 2002 14. I think when I first came here, that might have been, the 13, 14 year. They might have just been underway prior to me or at the very beginning of my employment. But as part of the GSA contract, Pitney Bowes reached out. So they are on the government state agency contract, and Pitney Bowes reached out with some pricing for upgrade on machines that will offer new technology and be compliant with the 2024 United States Postal Service requirement to have all postage machines upgraded with intelligent mail and DTO, which is the stamp. So come 2024, we are going to have to get new machines anyway. Our machines are old, 10 years old. 8 years old. I think actually, to be honest with you, I thought she said, yeah, she did. She said they're offering a deal on it. They'll be 10 years old when we're required to switch, but it would benefit us right now. So there's an option for a 5-year lease or a purchase with 5-year fees. I'm recommending the lease. The reason I'm recommending the lease is because the fees are locked in for the 5 years, whereas with the purchasing of the machines in 5 years, the first 12 months of the fees are locked in that we pay. So when it all comes down to it, at the end of the day, the difference, making the assumption that the fees don't go up, but they probably will, is that the difference is about $1,100 cheaper if we purchase them, but the $1,100 doesn't. The $1,100 is probably slightly less because of the fees not locked in 4 years of increases. So again, I feel like it's an immaterial amount. And they come out and they do everything with the leasing. We don't pay to ship the product here. They come set it up. They offer training, the whole bit. We have a maintenance agreement with it. And I put in the packet a picture, the spec sheet of the larger one here, and then the two smaller ones that are at the high school. It does all of that.
Motion to approve by Ms. Grant, and seconded by Ms. Manolo. Ms. Grant and Ms. Manolo.
Does it, the package, does it include the supplies? I know the ink is very expensive.
Right. No, it does not.
It does not.
It does not include that. We replace the ink, but we do have, discounting pricing. I actually have.
Melissa, it includes the maintenance on it too?
Yeah.
So they'll
it's a
come and
maintenance
clean it and,
Yeah, they'll come out anytime we ask them if there's any issues, training, whatever it is, they'll come out. And again, at the end of the lease, we can certainly buy it out. We don't own it at the end of the lease, it's a buyout, fair market value.
Yeah, it says save 20% on the ink.
Yeah.
how
so we
many
do-
how many things of ink would you say we do go through? Because I know it does go quick and I know it is expensive. I was just curious.
I would be.
No, that's okay.
I'll get that information. I'm gonna guess. I have to guess. And it's done in the main office. Maybe we replace the ink.
And then
Quarterly.
do you guys get for larger envelopes? Do you
The
also
labels,
order
we buy the
the
labels
labels?
too. Yeah, we
You
don't
buy
get the,
the-
actually, we don't buy their labels. We get them at a discount, but then we
Okay.
So we get the labels in. We also have a label for a seal.
Yeah.
So we have that. So those are the 3 items that we have purchased.
Thank you.
Who refills the monetary?
So that's done out of the business office when it goes down. So we have an account set up, and then they have users that are assigned to it. So it would be the lead clerk at the schools, and then Pat in my office in accounts payable is the overseer. And then of course, when they purchase and do a purchase order, and then we go in, it locks it, and then we download to the machine. So it's all a tracking. Pat has an online.
You monitor usage.
Well, what we do is we don't, they have money in their budget to do it. We don't see what goes out of the high school. We also don't see at the end of the month the reception.
So it's out of their budget.
It's out of their, we earmark money in their budget. So it's paid out of, we budget it into the central office. We only have one machine in central, and we budget, Shannon told me budget their own. But whatever we ship out of there, the person who does the mail codes what school it's going to, because we have to charge it to that program. So we'll pay the postage, we'll pay the every month, the recession gives Steve the controller, he does a journal entry to say, okay, we use $1,000 posted this month, who spent $1,000, and we take it out of the business office and move it to the account that belongs to, for color reporting purposes.
Okay.
But it's all done, obviously, with purchase orders, and once they receive the check, they load it on a machine, and Pat gets an email, and they go down, and each school that has a machine, they don't have, they don't have access to like do anything with check or anything like that, because it goes through the city without checks, but they download, when their money is available, they download it, and there's transaction history.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Lucy, please call roll.
Ms. Manolo. Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. The next item is approval to award contract for food service equipment at various schools. Ms. Devine.
Okay, so back in February, we had brought, on February 14th, we had brought to the school committee that the district's nutrition fund is only allowed to keep about 3 months of surplus on hand. With the COVID pandemic, the programs and the federal reimbursements and all the students and the families eating for free generated a huge surplus, and we're almost, I think we're required to spend a minimum of, I want to say that at that time, we were required to spend a minimum of $260,000 in order to meet the minimum requirement that you can have for surplus on hand. So that surplus has to be reinvested into the program. We issued an RFP in May, at the end of May. We had brought before the school committee what we would like, a list of what we were going to do. The only thing that was added to this RFP was Winters small wares, because the Winters equipment is included with the new school construction, but there was no small wares included. So we did add that from the list that was provided to the school committee on the estimated things that we were going to need. So we bid all that out, and then we received, believe it or not, we sent it to like 7 or 8 people, and we only received 1 bid. People are I don't know why, I think because of the long lead times and things like that. We did ask that they come in by August 15th, but if they had an alternate date because they couldn't get it by the 15th, they just needed to let us know. So we only received 1 bidder, and the name of the company that sent it in is called Singer Equipment, which is formerly known as Kidridge. It's a well-known name that provides equipment, kitchen equipment for schools. And the bid came in for $289,374 for the replacement equipment at all the different schools. And then for the small wares at Winters, it's $15,035 for a total award of $304,410.39.
So a motion to approve by Ms. Manolo, seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Ms. Grant.
Mr. Vine, I could be wrong, but does this include anything for the transition students?
I have not received any update on where we are with that. I think that the special ed department is going to look into figuring out what the program is going to be. And I'm not sure whether that hasn't been brought to me just yet. And I know that we were working on it. So I'm not sure where that's at, but I had to get it spent. We certainly
Yeah,
can
that's
go.
what I'm disappointed that wasn't included, because I know it had come up prior that there was the money from the nutrition fund, and I remember that.
Right, so we would
So
have to
just
incorporate,
something.
and I think we talked about this, we would incorporate whatever the transition, but it would have to be for use within this program in order, because it has to be reinvested into the program, and we talked about, new stove or equipment like that, because they do have a program here that they serve the kids. The kids would be able to use it, but I actually had to sign a document when we got approval, because we had to get approval to go out to bid for this stuff too, because of what we're spending the surplus on. And one of the questions on there is the program for is the equipment for students, or is it for the program? So of
Well,
course we
I
say for the
think the
program.
transition, and I think myself and the special ed director, when we were touring, the discussion was, their food is delivered to the, so, they don't have a refrigerator, they have like.
Right. In
Yeah.
other words, so it would have to be, I just want to let you know that, yes, we can
Yeah.
certainly do that, but I need to have what they want to plan to put into that. So I haven't received that just yet. So I think they're working on what they're going to do, but it would have to be bought in this program, and it would have to be for the nutrition program. But of course, the transition students will be able to take an opportunity on their learning experiences too. Absolutely.
And so there is still money in this
Absolutely.
program? Okay.
Absolutely. We will make sure that happens. So I'll make sure that I touch base with Mark and John, and we can get that moving along for you.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Finella.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Next is EAP, Employee Assistant Plan Contract Renewal.
Yes, so Mrs. Rabbit is coming up and she's going to walk us through EAP services that is up for renewal.
Good evening. The district has been fortunate to have Coastline EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, in place for several years. This contract is to continue it for 3 years. We use the Employee Assistance Program in many different ways. Many employees take advantage of it. They do grief counseling whenever we have an issue that needs that type of counseling. They provide employee assistance in a range of issues that we deal with in human resources. They are extremely confidential, but we've had great successes with employees who have been referred through them. It's interesting that they help not only with things that you might think of employee assistance, like substance abuse or things like that, but they also help with if you're having general problems. For instance, you need elderly care, or you need child care, or any other problem that's impeding you from doing your job, getting to your job, doing your job well. So we refer people all the time. They come and make presentations. They're available 24/7. Whenever I have a grief issue, it could be 10 o'clock at night. They pick up the phone and they're in the schools the next day.
There's a motion to approve by Ms. Finella, it's been seconded by Mr. Larby and Ms. Grant. Ms. Grant.
So I might be a little confused on this. Is this this isn't for the students, this is for the
Adults,
For the adults.
right? It's
So-
an employee plan,
Okay.
yes.
So through the insurance that we provide, I know through my insurance, Blue Cross, if I call, they have people that you can have assigned to you to support you through different things. Have we looked into our insurances to see if there are things that can be provided, like counseling and things like that?
We can certainly look at that, but that would be an additional cost to the district for an employee
Well,
assistance
no,
plan.
I'm just saying, if it's there and it's part of their, it's part of their health insurance that they have, why would we buy an additional, why would we pay for an additional program or assistance that would be at cost to the district?
So
Or
the-
am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, the employee assistance plan really goes beyond insurance. So oftentimes if you were to call employee assistance and you had a specific problem, so let's say you needed some additional counseling, certainly they would utilize your insurance, but they would assist you in finding the best program for you. So if substance abuse is the issue, they will research programs that will work for you, and then they will work with your insurance company to get your insurance benefits. But they provide non-insurance benefits too. Grief counseling is not something, for instance, that we use Blue Cross as our insurer, they would provide. Counseling for any kind of other problems that are interfering with the workplace, they provide. So those services are extensive. We often work with the PTA and the non-certified union when we're working with employees that are having difficulties. And those unions are very supportive of the services that this contract provides.
Ms. Finella.
If our insurances are combined with the city, if they're the same, are they?
Melissa, our insurances are not provided.
Are they the same as the city?
So I know the city uses EAP. I know that at one point when we did the outfitting, that we don't really have to bid because of the medical assistance, but they use the same vendor that we do with a separate account, separate bills.
But same vendor, so the pricing is,
I'm not sure on where that pricing came from. I would assume that if the city's still continuing to use it, the last time I know that they did a physical
Was,
bid,
right,
they were the only ones that did, I think.
yeah.
And the price really, I think this is the first year in like 5 years it's gone up. I don't think it's gone up.
Very little.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. List, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Vinella.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Lobby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. The next is translation services contract.
So Mrs. Rabb is also going to take that, and this is something that she's been working on with our MLL department and our special ed department on translation services, and she will share that.
Yes, so as part of our ESSER 3 funds that you approved back in January, February, we budgeted $96,000 for translation services. It's an area of need that we've really seen growing in our district. We do employ 2 interpreters. We employ a Spanish and a Portuguese interpreter, and it's certainly our intention to continue to employ 2 interpreters. But there are times when they're both busy and we need to speak to a parent, or there are times where we have other languages coming into our districts. For instance, 2 weeks ago, I needed a French interpreter to speak to a parent about 2 high school students. So translation services is really something that's used extensively. And what it does is, for the most, there are different types. So there are scheduled, where you may be having an IEP meeting and you schedule the interpretation services. There can be on demand when something comes up with a child and the principal just needs to pick up the phone and communicate with the parent or guardian. There could be document conversion that we often need. So there are various services, and you can see the pricing in here. They offer many, many languages. And what you would do, let's say that I have a scheduled IEP meeting, I'm a principal, I have a PIN number, I can use that PIN to basically get my services, and we loop in the interpreter. So they will bill us bi-weekly. This is obviously a new service to us, but it's a good use of our ESSER 3 funds, because it gives us the chance to basically see if this new service will really increase our communication with parents, which we believe it will. So we're excited about it. It's been a joint effort of several departments as we've looked into it. We are purchasing this contract off the MPA.
The motion to approve by Ms. Vinella has been seconded by Mr. Lowry and Ms. Grant. Ms. Grant.
I do want to say, I think this is long overdue. I think something had to or needed to be done in regards to translation. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times we see children being used as the translator for different things. And I think there are a lot of things that some children just shouldn't be involved in or knowing. With that being said, I just want to, so when you say you will be charged, so weekly, so it's a phone call, or?
In most cases, it's probably going to be a phone call. It can be in person, but we do a lot of our communicating via the phone. So
Okay,
most
and
cases,
it's a
and then it's
standard
been,
price every week, no
so
matter
there's
how
a
much
price.
you use?
The pricing is very, so if you look at the services, the in-person, so there's a charge for in-person, and there's a minimum on that. There's a class B, because there are 2. You have what they call your more common languages, which is Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Polish, and Russian. And there are class B languages, which are all the other languages that they cover. So there's a 2-hour minimum. And then there's also, they do sign language. So that has a separate charge that's considered a class C.
So I know you said this was taken off the NP.
The master price.
Did we look into anything else? And the only reason I ask is I'm a frequent visitor to the hospital, and they have these things that roll with you and walk with you. So if it happened to be a phone, I'm concerned that the parents might be constricted to a particular area. So say, for example, it is we have a teacher's night, a parent-teacher conference, or an event at a school or something. Would this go through the school phone or?
So that would be, you could do in person with this, that would be a schedule.
Because
So you would know that parent was coming well in advance, right? So we would schedule. On parent-teacher nights, we actually do try to employ additional interpreters. If we have multilingual TAs, for instance, who often translate for us on parent-teacher night, we have our own interpreters. But let's say we needed a language that we didn't have, that would be scheduled, and we could do it in person.
Because they do have, like I was saying, instead of having an actual person, they're machines that you call into and the person translates, and then they would walk around the building with them. And I don't know if it would be worth having a couple of them at each building. I don't know what the rate would be.
We did we actually looked at 3 companies, 2 responded to our request. That was not something that we saw, but we can certainly call them, for future use.
Yeah.
We're certainly,
Because I just worry that it would be easier for someone sitting at a desk or a customer service place to call in than for someone to actually get to a particular place or a person to have to be in the principal's office using the phone when it's
or it could be in person. One of the things I think really beneficial for this too is the fact that it's very, very, very difficult for us to get sign language interpreters, and they offer that service, and we often have to wait weeks
Well,
to
even
get that service.
when you push these carts, there's a picture that the person, you see the person. So if the person did have to do sign language or something like that, it would, I want to say like compared to a movie or something, that you would just roll it with you. But I'm just thinking it might be something to look into that might be more compatible with a lot of the things that we're going to use it for, meaning like parent-student nights, things like that, So, but I definitely think it's long overdue.
Ms. Miller, you have a question?
I was just looking to see how long this contract was for. 1 year?
The contract is 1 year, and then it can be continued for 2 additional years.
Okay, and first you can look into those mobile translators, please.
They're like an iPad. They're like an iPad almost.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Motion on the table, it's been seconded, no further discussion, Ms. List, please take a roll call.
Ms. Pinella?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Ms. Chalabi?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. The next is elevator inspection and testing, Mr. Silva.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Great, how are you?
The school department went out for an RFP on elevator testing and inspections for a 3-year contract from Gary of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th of 2025. We received 2 responses to our RFP, one from Atlantic Elevator and one from Bristol Elevator Service. The cost for annual inspection from Atlantic Elevator was $2,955 all 3 years. For service calls and repairs, the labor rates were $225 for a technician all 3 years. For an assistant, it was $215 all 3 years. The labor and repairs technician overtime was the same, $350 all 3 years for a technician, and the assistant was $325 for all 3 years. The annual inspection from Driscoll Elevator Service, it started at $3,440 for quarterly inspection. This is price per quarter. Then it went up to $3,987 in the second year of the contract, $4,105 in the third year of the contract. For the service calls, technician per hour started at $230 on the first year, $237 the second year, $245 the third year, with the assistant being $230 an hour, $237 an hour for the second year, $245 an hour for the third year. And the overtime hours for the technician would be $391 an hour the first year, $403 an hour for the second year, and $415 an hour for the third year, while the assistants are $391 for the first year, $403 for the second year, $415 for the third year. As you can see, there's quite a difference in the overall cost for the 3-year package. So we are recommending that the committee approve Atlantic Elevator's proposal for elevator inspections and testing.
Been a motion to approve by Ms. Canales, and seconded by Ms. Labby and Ms. Grant. Any discussion on the recommendation? Ms. Canales?
Have we used them before?
No, they have bid before, but our previous vendor was Otis Elevator. And from what we were told, they did not respond to the
Next item is HVAC, boilers, and building maintenance systems.
All right, again, we went out for a 3-year contract for the period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025 for an HVAC boiler and building maintenance system service and repair. We received 2 responses. One was from Automatic Temperature Control, which was first year $105 the regular rate, second year $108, third year $112. The overtime rate is $158 for the first year, $162 for the second year, $168 for the third year. And the holiday rates, hopefully we never have to use it, it would be $210 first year, $216 the second year, and $224 the third year. Now, Ardent Engineering has 2 different prices. They have a regular rate and for when they're doing service calls, and for a different rate when they're doing the BMS, building maintenance service. The first year for them, the regular rate was $125 regular service, $130 for the BMS service. Second year was $131.25 an hour for regular service, $136 an hour for the BMS service. Third year was $137.50 for regular service, $142 for the BMS. The overtime rate was $185 for regular service and $195 for the BMS service on the first year. Second year, the overtime was $191.25 for regular service and $201.25 for the BMS. The third year was $197.50 per hour for regular service and $207 per hour for BMS. On their holiday rates, it was $220 regular service, $225 on the BMS. Second year was $226.25 for regular service and $231.25 for BMS service. The third year was $233.50 for regular service and $237.50 for BMS. The automatic temperature control came in lower, so that's who the facilities is recommending that the committee accepts, and they are our current vendor. They have been for the last few years.
So motion approved by Ms. Nelson, seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Moreno?
As a Marvin, as a Pawtucket vendor, and each rate with the exception of the holiday rate, it seems to be a difference of any 5 to the 30 dollars, and so I'm just curious, annually, how many hours do we usually have each rep back?
What they come in for all different things, actually. They are here, they service our rooftop units, which we have 8 of them. Boilers at every school, which is 16 of them. The BMS we have at 13 schools. This contract calls for quarterly service and inspection. And the BMS is, like I said, 13 schools, so
Yeah.
it actually isn't that much of a difference. Automatic temperature control is out of Cranston, and Ogden is out of Pawtucket.
So I'm just curious if the hourly rate, if the hours annually with the any 5 hour with what they difference of 20 on 5 an hour would sort of even itself out if we were to isn't this with a city vendor? I don't know. I'm just.
It would not be a substantial amount more.
But I do want to remind the committee that we have not yet approved second passage of a policy that does have the ticket preference at this point. So I would want to check with legal on that, but Ms. Vanilla.
So, not to jump ahead, but the policy as it's written right now says it has to be of an equal amount. So that wouldn't make it valid, even if we were to do that policy ahead of time. So I would stay with automatic temperature controls for now.
Seeing no further discussion on this, the motion is to approve automatic temperature control. Ms. Lucy, please call the roll.
Ms. Vanilla.
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yeah.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. The next item is chairlift inspection and services.
Yes, we went out for an RFP on this also for the same period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. We only received one RFP, and that was from Atlantic Elevator. Their annual inspection and testing per quarter would be $1,846.65 all 3 years. For service calls, the cost for the labor and repair technician would be $225 per hour all 3 years, with their assistant being $215 for all 3 years. The overtime hours, the technician would be $350 per hour all 3 years, and the assistant would be $325 all 3 years. Atlantic Elevator, as you know, we just approved for our elevator service, so they would be doing both of our services. We recommend that the committee accept Atlantic Elevator's proposal.
So the motion to approve by Ms. Vanilla and seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Grant.
Chris, how many lifts do we have in the district?
We have a total of 9 in the district.
We have 9?
Yes.
And what schools do we have in mind?
Well, actually, there is total of 5 different ones at Tolman.
We have 5 lifts at Tolman? Okay.
We have one at Shea, we have one at Goff, we have one at Fallon, and we have one at the Annex.
And are they used at these schools?
Yes, they are.
They are.
Yes.
Okay,
We've had to repair the one at Shea a couple of times.
okay,
The one at Fallon is used,
quite a bit. yeah.
yes.
Okay, and what about Tolman? Because they have an elevator. So
They
besides the elevator, they have 5 lifts?
Yes, they have one, if you come out of the auditorium,
Yeah,
they have one that just gives you, go up so you don't have to go up those stairs, up the
Okay.
ramp.
yeah,
They have another one up in the auditorium.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get access to different places that the elevator would not be able to.
okay, yeah. No, but the one at Tolman, the side stage is really nice.
Yes,
So, yeah, I just didn't realize they had that many there.
yes.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. List, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Pinello. Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby, Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have generator service.
Yes. Another 3-year proposal, RFP we went out for, runs from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. We received one response to our RFP, and it's our current vendor right now, A Shopper Power Systems. We have 2 generators in the district, one at the administration building and one here at Jenks. For the service call, for the preventative maintenance service for the administration building would be $600 per year for all 3 years. Jenks would be $1,260 per year for all 3 years. The service rates for the first year, the regular time would be $120 per hour. Overtime would be $180 per hour. The second year would be $130 per hour. And overtime would be $195 per hour. The third year would be $140 per hour for the regular and $210 for the overtime. We recommend that the committee accept A Charpentier for the generator services.
Motion to approve by Ms. Finello, and seconded by Ms. Grant. Boy, in 3 years, there's going to be a lot of new contracts. Any discussion on this? Ms. List, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Pinello. Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Silva. Next, we have field trips for committee approval. Ms. Ramsey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a field trip request before you this evening. It's for an out-of-state field trip, overnight field trip for the Cheyenne Tolman cross-country team to the Manhattan College Invitational in New York from October 7th to October 8th. It includes 28 students and 4 coaches. The teams would leave Pawtucket at noon on October 7th, stay overnight on Friday and complete the race on Saturday, and then return home Saturday evening. The teams have participated in this invitational in the past. However, because of COVID, they have not participated in the last few years. So we're looking for your approval for that overnight.
The motion approved by Ms. Finello, and seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Finello.
What will their transportation be?
Bus,
What kind of bus?
school bus.
And how much would it be to give them a better bus?
Well, we can certainly look into that if you would like us to.
I would like you to.
We will. So
Thank
coach
you.
buses?
Yes, please. Should be one bus, correct?
Yes, they all would fit. If it's 28 students and 4 coaches would all fit on a coach bus.
Our students have sacrificed a lot over the last few years. and
They'll enjoy
we-
that trip to New York.
Ms. Marino.
Sleep over. They would be sleeping over. Night at the college.
They have slept over. In fact, I don't have that information from the coaching staff, but I believe in the past it was.
No further discussion on this? This is for you, please call the roll.
Ms. Manila? Yes. Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Ms. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Next is traffic and drop off at Jenks Middle School. Ms. Bear.
So I brought this forward this evening, because we have a lot of schools in our district that do traffic drop off, right? And, I received some complaints, this year. And one of my big concerns is the buses come into the front of Jenks. So,
Pardon me, Mrs. Ray, I have a map. Would you like me to pass that out?
oh yeah, sure, that'd be fine, that'd be great. So, the buses come in front. And, you know, I think one of the things we don't want to do is have our students crossing in between cars. Plus, in the front of the building, some of the administration at the school does park there. So the reason I brought this forward is because if, you know, some of the schools that I've been to that really do drop off well is area, they have the parking lot in the back, the teachers are out there. But I think we need to really utilize Ashton more. And I think, you know, we need to make sure that we have faculty out there in the morning, whether it's on a rotation schedule or what it is. But I think we really do need some consistency with this. Unfortunately, I know a couple weeks ago, there was an incident at a school. Fortunately, the child was okay. But I know in my neighborhood, you know, they come right up the street, the kids drop off, there's teachers out there, there's someone to greet them. Sometimes, you know, with the little ones, the parents will get out because they're concerned, they want to make sure. But, you know, these are older students. And I think, you know, parents could just kind of pull up, drop off, and if you see where it is highlighted. But I think we need to make sure this happens. And I think, you know, the staff needs to make sure that letters are sent out. There needs, especially in the beginning of the school year, faculty, like I said, whether they do it on a rotation. But I think it's extremely important that we really do, you know, take these drop-offs very serious. They can affect the neighborhoods. They can affect the traffic, people going to work, and they can also affect the safety of the student. And I think, you know, with Ashton being there, and the neighborhood being more up the street, that it's not going to affect it as much. And I think we really need to encourage and have our schools really have some plans, because we don't want the students walking in between the buses and or the faculty parking. And I think that's very important. So that's one of the reasons I brought it here tonight. You know, I don't know if we have, you know, any policies on our drop off, but I would like to see that that Ashton is used for all drop-offs before school, and students walk along this sidewalk that, you know, whether it be JMW, whether it be, you know, someone has to go to the right to enter the door and one has to go to the left. But that, you know, on these school days, the faculty's there directing them, or whether it be the principals or whomever in school. But I do definitely think it's something that's very important.
Yes, I want to thank Mrs. Grant for bringing this up. I know that she did, contact me regarding a concern and reaching out to the building principal and Assistant Superintendent Ramsey. I know that they were speedy on trying to gather information and examine and analyze and bring in the police and do a somewhat of a traffic study. So I know she'll be able to speak to that. But we always have to think about student safety first, and there isn't necessarily a policy regarding parent drop-off and pickup. That's more of a procedural thing done at the schools, and oftentimes it takes, a continued encouragement of families, because we can put procedures in place, and then we need to assist them in understanding why it needs to be enforced for safety. So Mrs. Ramsey, I would like you to speak to your follow-up on this and where we are today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. McWilliams. Again, thank you, Mrs. Grant, for bringing this to our attention. It's been an ongoing conversation that started throughout the year. We've brought it numerous times to the building level administrators' attention, but we have gone out and done a couple of different visits to the Jenks schoolyard during drop-off time, during various seasons. What we've noticed is that there's two things that you never ever really want. You never want pedestrian and vehicular traffic to coincide, right? And you also want an easy flow of traffic for the drop-offs of students. And you want that clearly communicated and clearly articulated. And then you also need to accommodate for those individuals who, despite your regular ongoing reminders, choose not to necessarily follow the rules that you have. And we also want to create a safe transition for our students. So there are a couple of issues that we did identify in this process. So number one, there was a myriad of students that were walking to school, those walkers and those students that are being dropped off by the parents that didn't necessarily want to wait in the line, because the preferred drop off is indeed Ashton and has been Ashton for quite some time. However, if the parents didn't want to wait, they were dropping off on Division. Kids were jumping over that little grassy area and then crossing, which was an unsafe environment. So the principal and his staff have absolutely they've delineated a procedure to clearly articulate that Ashton is the preferred drop off, but they're also compensating for in giving students a safe passage in the event it doesn't occur the way it's supposed to, with the ongoing reminders. Because what we have learned through transportation and through interactions with buses and things of that nature, when you tell a family or anyone what not to do, you must inform them what they should be doing. So an ongoing communication. So I provided this little map diagram for you so you can see that the Ashton drop-off is the preferred location and has been. The red dot at the entrance there has been the SRO. However, that SRO was not available for a good portion of the year, so some of the staff did relocate to that location. The highlight in the middle of the parking area abuts the ramp to the main entrance to the school. We're going to add and relocate additional visitor parkings that are across there, so it's easy and identifiable for people to park and cross in a generalized location. The red box is currently one handicap spot. We're going to increase that to 2 handicap spots and push the rest of the traffic parking down. Starting at 7:40 in the morning, there will be no cars allowed in the front circle at all for drop off. Teachers will need to take their vehicle and park in the rear of the building, where they will not be interacting with students and student drop off. We will be clearly delineating a crossing area so we can curtail those that are walking to school and think that they can just enter from all areas, and we can curtail the parents that don't want to necessarily, despite repeated reminders, to park on Ashton. We will have a presence there in front, and we will guide students so there's no vehicular and pedestrian crossing. So that is the diagram that you have in front. The principal and his staff over at the Jenks JMW did take heed to the police investigation. Also, if I might add, there was also a bus departure issue. So if you look at the very corner, after the red box, as you were leaving the parking lot to go out onto Vision, quite often buses have to make a right-hand turn toward the light, right? And the police officer is going to ensure that that is a no parking, no standing area for cars, so the buses can adequately and easily make that turn as approaching to the light. So we did a considerable amount of investigation and site visits. This will also help with when there's excessive snow, as we did experience this winter, and blocking certain access points to the sidewalks. So we did take a lot of the suggestions that were given from the police and we put them into action into procedure at the school. And that will be enacted for summer program, which starts Tuesday.
You said for the summer program.
It will. Yeah, we have quite a large number of buses coming to the JMW complex for the summer, and that starts Tuesday, so this will be in force on Tuesday.
Okay, so a couple of things. One, we have the ride safety funds coming available. What do they have? 500 million that they're going to allocate, 500,000. So that they're going to allocate. So why can't we fence this section across Ashton and Division so that it pretty much forces people to go around the fence?
You mean the
unless they
entire front landscape abutting Division?
Yeah. Why can't we do that?
We can look into.
I mean, that's very safe. The other thing is when the buses park on Ashton.
Buses do not park on Ashton. Buses come into the loop.
Okay, buses come into the loop. Ashton is the family drop off?
Correct.
Okay, can we get signage that
Yes.
says?
My apologies. I have asked John Cody and his team to get additional signage for both clearly delineated visitor parking, handicap parking, and signage to buses only.
Okay, so the other thing is, I know we do it at the school committee. We park on the other side of Ashton, walk across. So that defeats a lot of the safety purpose that you're trying to create.
So that is the city. So we can certainly have John and his crew, and we can reach out to the city to see if that is a no parking area, I think, already.
Maybe a couple more signs.
More signage, clear
parks there
signage.
anyway.
If I may, if the signage is absolutely, when we relocated, I'm going to go back to when we made go off one ways, we had to retrain people as they were coming to go off. We made one ways, and the signage truly helped where the buses stopped. So signage did help.
I think if you also ask for lines, like, you know how they put the lines
Across
and then
Ashton,
they put,
those the lines, this little highlight right there.
no, so if you,
Oh, you're talking about on
if you're
Ashton?
talking about Ashton on the opposite side,
Yes,
where they usually put the lines and then they put the,
as it's delineated in the lower corner on this
So
map.
people will not park there.
so that will show no
Lines for
parking.
All right, we're on.
Like we have on the fire,
Correct.
right? So if you put that on the side of Ashton, and if you put some spaces on the side of Ashton where you do want them to get out, then that'll identify where they're supposed to be. I think
More
the
lines.
clearer
better
we
signs.
make it, the better everybody will be.
For sure.
So those are just some suggestions that you
We'll
might want to
contact
look
the city.
into.
Well, John, Chris and I will contact the city.
Thank you so much, Ms. Grant, for bringing that up.
Well, it's a lot of messages coming daily. And something just needed to be done. Like I said, I think there are a lot of schools in our district that do it right. And I think we need to, I think one thing our district lacks a lot is consistency. And I think what I mean by that is, I think a lot of our schools can learn from other schools. And I think a lot of things that they do, they can share. And I think consistency is important, and no matter what it is, you know, and safety, traffic drop off for school is definitely a safety issue. And we definitely don't want anyone to get hit by a bus or a car or anything. So, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is school committee policy, first passage, DJB, purchasing and bidding, Mr. Larby.
Table.
Then a motion table by Ms. Manolo, it's been seconded by Ms. Krantz. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is tabled. The item is tabled. Discussion items, update on school website development.
So Mr. Christina's gonna come up and give us some great news.
So I just want to give you a couple things here. And a little meeting, so I will not. Great, thank you. So I just want to go over a couple of things with you about development that we've worked on a little bit of time.
There's any money in that wallet.
I was gonna say, later on, I'll be wondering where is my wallet when I'm trying to adjust that. Put together here to describe. One of the things is WCAG compliance. I don't know if you've heard of WCAG compliance, but it basically has to do with what's called web content accessibility. So one of the things that we're required by law is about web content for everybody, right? So in other words, when you see a website, and if you've been on a lot of websites, one of the things that you have to make sure that you account for is the accessibility of everybody to use your website and everybody to use it properly. And that comes through people with vision issues and things like that. So one of the things about the new website is to meet the web content accessibility, and a lot of school departments, Target, places like Target and everything have been sued in the last years and things like that because they don't meet those, because it's a public facing entity. The other thing is what's called responsive design. So when we talk about responsive design, that means that when you go to a website, and I'm kind of just going over these bullets quick, and then I'm going to show you what I'm referring to when I talk about this. But responsive design means when you go to a website, and whether you open up on your phone, your tablet, your computer, and everything, it's responsive. What that means is it scales to the device itself. And you know, if you've been on the website and you have to go and you have to kind of keep scrolling back and forth. Now, there's always going to be a little bit of that, but try to be as responsive as possible. Mrs. Grant kind of mentioned this in the last comment, and trust me, this comment was already here before she said I didn't have it in there, but it's consistency, which I agree is the consistency between sites, whether it's a school site, you know, district site, things like that. One of the things I've been trying to build into it is that consistency, so that when you go, you're in the site and you know kind of a feeling that you're in the same spot. It's not, it doesn't look totally different from one place to another. This is not just applying to here. Some of the issues that I have also at the city and things like that with the website, there has a whole different criteria that we have to fall into, such as the .gov websites and things like that, to let our constituents know that they're on a real site. That doesn't apply to schools, but for municipalities it does. So consistency, one of the things that I've tried to do is on a new site is to try to build in that consistency so that we're not reading one thing in one place and it's totally different somewhere else. This other statement kind of seems weird, but reduction leads to more information. What I mean by that is a lot of times we want to plaster, like whether it's a flyer or things like that, right on the site. So what that does is it takes away from the person visiting the site from reading it, because it's too much, right? We all want to see what we want right away. And if we want more information about that, we want to click and see what the more information. If we really don't care about it, we kind of move on to the next story and stuff like that. So that's one of the things. Push technology. So one of the things we push technology built into a new site is the ability to push out information, as opposed to having to rely on somebody going in and touching 16 different sites. So if we got an announcement that goes out, such as our bullying policy, which is required to be on all websites, we want to push that out to all of them. And we want to fix it. We want to be able to fix it and not have to visit all of them, right? And the other thing that look to build into is what's called increased uptime. So changing it, this is not just a change of a design of a website. When you count the number of links, the number of pictures, the number of information throughout all of our districts, we're looking at like 16 corporate websites. So it takes time to make sure that's built into there. And we want to increase our uptime with a hosting provider that we currently have right now. I wasn't happy with their uptime, so we're moving to just not only a new website, but a new hosting provider as well that has a 99.9% uptime, which is one of the best in the as far as hosting providers. So what does that mean? So let me go into a couple little examples. And what I did was I'm still finalizing some of the things on there. This is a site that I have here for demonstration, so I didn't copy every single element there, but I got it enough to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. So moving forward on our website, when we talk about changes, our new website, and it's sorry, it doesn't show here, but because of things. But a new website, if you go into a lot of websites, you're looking at pictures of students, activities that's going on. Once again, I copied a couple here that you see with the scrolling with the information. Our news, one of the things that with our current website, when you go to our news, right, you're kind of scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling to get the information. So built in now, we have news stories, which are here that talk about, and if you want to go to more news stories, you can, go through and see the additional news stories. Some of the samples, you can click on the view more and get more information about that. For also events going on in our buildings, we built in is a calendar of events that allows to basically, like I talked about before, kind of taking the information from multiple sites. So someone come into Pawtucket right away, and if they want to see information going out throughout the district, they can see it here, or they can come over here and change and only see a particular school. And when they go to that school, they can just go to the school. So if I'm at Curvin, I don't want to see all the information that's going on there. I can just see Curvin. However, if I have a student who's at Curvin, I have a student who's at Gulf, I can just pick the calendars I want to see and see both of those, because that, as me, that's what I'm focused on, right? Not focused on some of the other events. And one thing, I'm not going through every element here, but where are we? Where can be found? Kind of a map. But at the bottom, a lot of things that we have to, by compliance, have on our website, such as the bulletin policy that's here, the freedom to know, our budget, public records request, calendar, district information. So somebody coming in and they want to see our district information, when they click on that, it's going to the RIDE report card, which will give us information about the district. You can, narrow in on certain schools. The one thing about this is we're not changing information on a day-to-day basis, because we're linking to where the information is coming from, which is where we would be taking that information anyways. One of the things that, and basically I'm presenting to the school committee, so I'm just going to go to the school committee page, but also want to make sure that keeping in mind our students and staff, because they're the ones that really also use it on a day-to-day basis, because a lot of our instruction is now web-based. And so that's where they're coming to. So when they're coming to the site, there's a special area for employees and students and parents. The school committee website, one of the things that we've had, whoops, wrong button. is, as we've had in the past, information about our members. Sometimes it got crazy on the links. I could close this out. All of the information that I need about our core beliefs, subcommittees, and basically it's a click away, opens it up, but I'm not scrolling down the page and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling when I don't want to see it. I can close out. Our school committee videos from our meetings and so forth, they're all on here, quickly accessible as a playlist. So I can go from one video to the next. I think I remember to put my volume down. I can go from one video to the next, see what is as they load here. We load all of the different videos as they come on, and we update this. The other thing I want to point out that I talked a little bit about, you can't see it on the side right now, but is that accessibility. So when I want to come to a website like this, and I want to, and I can't see it because of vision problems I may have, these are the accessibility things that I'm talking about. That is that we should be by compliance. Visually impaired, a lot of times has to do with some of the, sorry, I'm looking at my screen here, but bigger text makes a difference. The spacing between the text makes a difference. So they can quickly come here, increase the size of the text without us having to change the website. And depending upon how visually we have software in our schools, that we use some of the students called JAWS, which allows that for the visually impaired. The spacing of the text, as you see right there, the spacing may look very good for you, but somebody with visual issues, they can come here and see how that automatically brought in more spacing between the text and increase the size. It can go bigger and bigger depending upon what I need. Also things such as the contrast of this. A lot of times it's tough when you talk about sites because you build sites around what your colors are. And the colors I mean is like what your, whether it's Pawtucket or the school department or, Tolman red and that, like that. But for somebody with visual problems, sometimes they have a problem. So the contrast changes the site altogether. Now you may say, ooh, I really don't like those colors. It's not about that. It's about, the visual perspective for somebody who's visually impaired and allows them to see it. And once again, even within that, it's a built-in thing that'll change the different colors and saturations. Even to the, or take away the background stuff so that that's not getting in the way of the content. For us, you can put that back. Also, dyslexia, things like that, it allows you to see that. It changes, I'm sorry, sure. So it changes the fonts to, that's what's regarded as, in the project, it doesn't quite do justice here on my screen. You can see it's a font that's easier to read for people with dyslexia. Once again, this is not something I built. This is kind of something that it's a wrapper that goes on to the website itself. And a lot, I can see them very clearly myself. We always attribute that blue as a hyperlink that we know somewhere to click. That's tough sometimes for some people to see. So there's also a highlighted links, and notice that it just took every link that I have on this page and showed me that, hey, there's a difference there. So that's some of the things, but when you get into the consistency and things like that, we're talking about the site right now. Unfortunately, if you go to our site, they kind of look all different, right? In the menus. What we're trying to do is that front page should look pretty consistent, except it should be the message of that school, the mission of that school, the principal's message. So I'm going to quickly just go to a sample of a Tolman site. When I click up here at the top and I go to the schools, and now I'm at Tolman, and the picture is about Tolman, events that are going on there, so forth. I'm still within the Pawtucket site. And if you noticed up here at the top, I still see my school committee, my parents, my guardians. This is kind of like all district things with the submenu that pertains just to the school itself. And it's going to be different from a secondary school to an elementary school. Academics are going to be different there, so those links would be specific. However, certain things like the bullying policy is something that is a district-wide policy, is pushed out to all schools. The school report card would be unique to each school. So when I click on that, I'm going to get Tolman's report card. Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you
have a lot of pictures up there. Do we have releases releases on all these students?
Yeah, so that is one of the things, that is one of the requests that I have made. I've asked Drew to go out and get pictures and submit to me from pictures that we have releases on them, because nothing should be going out there without a release. So, yes, so I've asked them as events in there to gather that information for us,
Okay.
because nothing should be posted without that release.
The other question is, I know we can go on the website right now and the principal might not have the right name on the website and not all the teachers have the right names. Who is going to be responsible for taking care of that?
Sure. So some of the things within the website itself, and I'll give you an example. The goal is to have the structure of the site as far as where things are to kind of stay consistent, but the message itself, the principles and so forth would be able to modify that. My goal right now is to build the site, have it ready, and then between Drew working with the schools and some of the schools and so forth, go from there. Depending upon what it is, obviously, there's multiple people that have to, modify. However, I will put that out there, just as I always do, call me the panic guy or something like that, and I will say that is once, like, build it, once it gets changed, then you lose some of the consistency and stuff like that you start off with. So you have to be very careful not to all of a sudden, and that I think is one of the things that we have. And once again, we're in a COVID time when a lot of information had to get out there very quickly. We had things coming from RIDE, things like, and people just, it's like, oh, hey, I need to post it. So in that, you kind of lose some of that control over there.
Yeah, I'd like to make, so I want to thank Hirsch for his work on this. This is something that we've been, talking about for quite a while. And like you said, we're in a COVID time. But when he and I have talked, I think the three things that we both were saying was consistency, and then my two words, clear and crisp, right? You want a site that you go to that's clear and crisp, and I think this does do that. We will be, Drew, our communications and PR person, will be working alongside Hirsch with this. Once the framework is up and it's going, we want to make sure that it stays clean, clear, and crisp, because we want people to be able to access it and get the information. And as you can already see, you can push out a lot of information that you can really understand instead of in our current, site, like you said, you're scrolling for quite some time. So we're really excited. I know you might want to share some more.
Yeah, I take 2 more minutes. Oh, I'm sorry.
How is it on a cell phone?
So, perfect. Segue into this. That's exactly what I was going to show you here. 2 things I'm going to, basically the last 2 things I'm going to show you. On a cell phone, what happens, I'm going to show you the responsiveness just by taking this page right here. So as you can see, whether I extend this page or not, this is a full, I'm on my full computer, I can see everything. So as I start to shrink it down, one of the things, if you pay attention to the site, one of the things will happen is it'll start changing automatically. So when I get to this point, notice that I still see everything here. Nothing is, cut off. All the information is still here. I'm not like on a tablet, probably even a little smaller would be, there's the tablet, see how everything kind of modified, and my calendar's still visible, my pictures, everything just shrank down and automatically fit there. When I get into the cell phone, which I'll shrink that way down, one of the things that you'll lose on a cell phone, which you normally is, this is a very wide banner picture. So what it will automatically do is it'll know that you're on a cell phone and it will remove that picture. So you won't see the picture now, but it keeps the formatting of all of your news stories and everything else like that, that it still fits in there, so you don't lose the pertinent information. Because on a cell phone, you can't keep that on there. So that's the responsiveness I'm talking about. Like by me just moving this, I didn't lose anything. So what I did is I kept that one, and so there's a current site right behind. So if you notice on our current site, as I start to shrink down, right, already I can't read this. So I have to kind of scroll back and forth to read the story there, to see it. If I really get down to like a cell phone picture of that, I really lose it. And I just wanted to kind of show you that as a responsiveness on the phone, and I'm kind of scrolling back and forth. The other last thing I wanted to show you, and I'll just hide this out of the way, was all of our users. So we have to be aware of is not just accessibility, but is also language, right? So a site, one of the things we've been doing a lot of times is, taking a document, translating. Okay, that's great. It's in Portuguese, it's in Spanish, it's in English. What about those that don't speak English, Portuguese, and Spanish? So right up here at the top, the built-in translator, so you can go through and choose languages. So, there's a lot of languages that I can add right now. I have it with a lot of them in there, but it'll automatically take the document that's on here. Is it 100% perfect? No, it's not going to be 100% perfect, but it's pretty good. I always go to the Portuguese one, since I can speak Portuguese, I can speak English and Spanish, and I'll hit that button and notice that now they make it a little tough to see, but calendário dos eventos, the information is there. You can read the news. It's translated into that language. Not only that, but the calendário escolar is in Portuguese. The links, the comunidade, that's in Portuguese. So all of a sudden, that's translated for them. Once again, it comes down to consistency, and it comes down to procedure. One of the things that you normally can't translate is pictures. So, if you take a picture and you translate that in its words, it's not going to translate that. So it's making sure the things that are posted on there are translated, things like that.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Just like the website we have right now, we have access to the different schools. So if people go on, we still have access to their calendars.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I guess this is for the superintendent. One of the biggest complaints I get from parents is that they're not updated, that schools don't utilize those. Some do, but a lot don't. How can we ensure that,
So what we did this year was my administrative assistant, Donna Barber, was gathering on a sheet all the events and posting it on the front website as we were waiting for this newer website. Now that we're going to have the new website, the expectation would be that not only will we have our district calendar, but some of those, the schools will have their calendar, and then very critical events, they might even be able to also, won't they encourage to push to the main calendar?
Yeah, so one of the things I've done, and I've shared out with Andrew and going to each of the schools, is a calendar for each school. So but like I said, it's then putting those events on the calendar, because the calendar is basically going to push everything that's there. So events will need to be added, to the calendar so that they come in. So the technology is there to bring it in.
No, and it's just up to the individual schools to update it. Okay.
So that I know. So the date for launch right now, I got a couple of things to clean up, to be honest with you, between getting ready for the summer school program and everything. I just want to make sure that I want to verify some links and things like that. A launch will be a weekend launch, because it's not just bring this website up and it's there. We have to change website provider. So what that happens is over with MX records and things like that, we have to change it. So it's usually a weekend. I would like to make a couple of other changes because I'm kind of that perfectionist. I just saw something that I wanted there, and with summer school. So I'm thinking within the next couple of weeks that I'd like to launch it.
By August.
By the beginning, yeah. The goal is easily beginning of school. And once again, but by August 1st, I'd like to have it launched, but I just want to make sure that everything is ready to go on that. Yeah.
It seems like you're having it, with some soft launch time in August where there's not as much traffic going
Correct.
to it, so that when, as traffic starts building, by the time that really parents are using it a lot for all the back to school events and things like that, it would be already, any bugs would have been worked out.
Right. No, that is true. And once again, a website is never done, so that's one of the things is, and there'll be things that the soft launch won't have a lot of the back to school things. But the other goal is to provide, one of the things we have to do is provide the training to the people at the individual schools to do it. It's not it's, I think that was a good question. Somebody said, okay, where's it going to be updated and everything like that? I think we have to also realize, like, as far as the website editing part, not everybody's a website editor. So I think it's my focus behind it is making sure that anybody can go into like a word processor type of thing and type in, as opposed to going in there and, adding this widget and that widget and everything. Simple is better. You don't want to get to a website where there's tons of flash and everything that looks amateurish, right? So you want to get, whether it's Nike or any of those sites, you look at it, it's very simple, very clean, very crisp.
Is there any busing information on the website?
There is, there's under departments, transportation is there. So basically there's a department page up at the top, and then the school. So the departments, and I meant to show the finance department too. The finance department has a lot of information. It's going through every page that we have on the link and making sure that we don't miss things.
But if I clicked on, because I think it's similar, like I mean, the Johnson Wales page, but like, this is for the faculty, this is for the students, this is for the prospective students. So if I click on the for parents, the transportation would be there, I would imagine.
And registration,
Yeah.
Information about what you need for registration, what proofs of ID. We have that on there now. But then one of the things that we're building into this one is for parents. A lot of times the two high schools will have stuff there, but what we want to do is we want to link theirs back to ours. An example, CTE. The CTE, which is at the high school, should also be on the district page. The information should be the same information, going out, so the students can see that. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to clean up, so that it's not different at Tolman than it is at Shea. The programs might be different, right? But the information it should be the same.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
The next item is summer projects. We have
Hello, everyone. How are you?
hello.
I'll be the first to provide a summer project update. I'm working on the Potter Burns envelope repairs and masonry restoration project. As this group is aware, we awarded that contract to East Coast Masonry. It's a summer project. The first summer, they'll be working on the addition part of the building, which has the worst water infiltration issues. And the second summer, they'll be working on the original part of the building. We have thus far been incredibly impressed by the quality of communication and the work that's been going on with East Coast Masonry. They have already committed to working 10-hour days during the week and every single Saturday throughout the summer in order to get this work done. I'd also like to thank Chris Silva. With so many people working on the site at one time, we've had a few power issues because they're drawing so much power. He's made his staff available really quickly to make sure the power got back up to keep the guys working. So we have a great relationship moving forward. They believe at this point that all the work will get done prior to school start. As I said, they're working the Saturdays and working 10-hour days during the week. We don't see an issue with them going into the school year. However, if they were to go during the school year, we've already committed to them that they would only be working Saturdays. So no work would go on during the school year on a school day. So they're only on one side of the building is what we've heard so far. And as I said, there's no need to believe this is going to happen now.
No, I mean, there was scaffolding up to protect things from falling, which is that part resolved this summer, so that
yes.
all next year there doesn't have to be scaffolding up in anticipation for the next summer.
So the only way we would have scaffolding up is again if there's something that they didn't get to finish. But it would also serve as protection in case that something didn't get finished, but it would only be on one side of the building.
But once again, if the summer project that they are intending to complete this summer is finished, we don't have scaffolding up all next school year.
That is correct.
They fixed that one problem that had the scaffolding up, so we can go back to normal we were using only 2 doors for entrance and exit, things like that.
That's
Go back
correct.
to all the normal.
Yeah, in fact, we've already taken that scaffolding down.
Yeah, I
We'll
know.
Put
I
up
didn't
new
know-
scaffolding.
I didn't know
yeah.
if they were like gonna put that back.
No, no. Happy to answer any questions about the project.
Yeah, so I don't know if, so this is a discussion item. I don't know if we want to go each item at a time, if people have specific questions on the size 10 font, sheet that we have here. So like I said, as far as committee members giving direction here, if we want to just ask questions on Potter Burns, if we want to ask questions on any of these.
Well, there,
There are other people here. Yep. Okay.
We'll get them as they come up.
Good evening.
So the first project that will be starting with Curtis and Barrier, fire alarm and fire sprinkler. This project is starting in the summer, which has already started. We have Delta Mechanical, the contractor on this project. This project will go over the school year, working second project, second shift, just as the nature of the project. And the completion will be upon the beginning of the new year, the 2023. This project is on schedule and on budget. The next project, we have actually 3 projects for GOV. I'm going to start with the roof. The roof will be complete by the school starts when the kids are back. So the actual roof will be fully complete. We will be having work left on flashing, metal flashing, and metal coping around the parapet. This is going to be done after school starts, plus the skylights. The skylights will be, the location of the skylights will be both framed and fully covered, waiting for the skylights to be delivered. Skylights has a lead time between 10 to 12 weeks. Next item I have is the STEAM lab. Upon the arrival of the kids, the STEAM lab will be finished. We'll have new painting, flooring, ceiling, lighting. The only item is left is the partitions, because we're opening 3 classrooms. It's going to be one open room, one open area. So the partitions will have a 19 or 18 weeks. So that's the only lead time item for this space, plus the furniture. So we already know about the furniture, and we talked with the facilities department, and we are keeping the existing furniture. We're storing them on site so we can reuse them before or until the new furniture comes in. The last item I have here for Bob is the fire code upgrades work. The fire code is we're creating a second means of egress from the gym and the cafeteria, plus adding cross corridor doors. So by the school second shift. Very similar to what we did in the security project, where we had few doors we needed to install second shift. That's all I have.
So the egress is ready.
Mm-hmm.
How secure will it be held until the door is put in?
The only exterior egress we have is from the gym. They're gonna be blocking this off completely. Like as it is now, there's no second means of egress from the gym. So they're gonna be doing the same thing. Mhm. Any other question?
Good evening. Working on the facility equity initiative projects, which span across 7 schools, the media centers in 6 of the elementary schools and the Slater cafeteria. flooring and painting, ceiling upgrades. Currently, the contractor is working all the sites right now. There's demolition. Electrical make safe is happening as we speak. And they're also doing finish painting in 2 of the schools already. And they've been on the job for about 4 years. Anticipate the work being completed at the end of the summer will be carpeting, painting, ceilings, and the majority of the light fixtures. If there's a delay on delivery of the light fixtures, is not really a delay, it's just the amount of time it takes to get some of the light fixtures is going to go past the start of school. We're looking at a few different sources right now for additional electrical panels that are needed for the project. We hope to have those in, but again, if we don't, there'll be temporary power that'll be available. And the power that's within the building right now should be available. Similar to what Jan just mentioned, the steam room project is part of the Facilities Equity Initiative furniture pack. You know, we did all the furniture together. And as she mentioned, it'll probably come in early to mid-fall, the seasonal fall. So September 21st to early November is when we anticipate the furniture coming in at this time. And we'll update everybody, but we did the same thing. We salvaged the furniture that we could and retain that on site, and we'll move that back in so that rudimentary class instruction can be done with the existing furniture that was already in the rooms. The one thing that we could not save is the bookshelves. And as we know, there was quite a bit of culling of the book counts and the volumes. So a lot of the librarians went through all that already. The majority of the books will have to stay in storage because the existing bookshelves, like this room, are attached to the walls. And there really isn't a way to bring them back into the libraries without attaching them to the new painted walls. And so there's going to be a delay there in that. You know, getting the new furniture, because all the new furniture is freestanding, the majority of it, that has the bookshelves.
So the lighting that's not going to be in yet, what will you have for lighting?
Oh, there'll be temporary lights. It'll be similar to what exists today, laying 2x4s or pendant mounted fixtures. What we're talking about is probably about 25% of the room. There's a decorative fixture. I don't know if you've ever seen that, the renderings, but they're these pendant circular fixtures with a color on the outside of them.
Okay.
And again, like other projects, any work that has to happen during the fall will be completed in the evening or on weekends. And just one other thing, there is abatement in these projects. There's four locations that have abatement. Currently, today, they're abating Little, which is the only school that has children in it during the summer. And the abatement should be complete sometime tomorrow. And the air clearance testing will be done on Monday. So the majority of the containment will be removed by the time students and parents will come for summer school on Tuesday.
So the air clearance testing happens and we'll have results before the school is open back up first.
Yeah, we'll have the test. The tests will be done.
The tests will be done.
The tests are done inside the contained area. The tests aren't done outside the contained area. So it's flooring. They're removing flooring, and the material isn't friable, meaning it's not like asbestos. It's not like pipe insulation where you can actually see the white mineral of asbestos. It's bound with asphalt and vinyl on a piece of tile. So it's not really the most hazardous we're talking about. What, pardon me?
Which schools
have abatement? It's Little, Slater, Cunningham. Thank you, Curtis.
I just wanted to mention one thing I forgot to mention. We have new lockers where we're going to add across corridor doors. We're taking out the lockers from the wall so we can create space for the doors. So we're adding new lockers, and these lockers have a lead time. So we are trying to use the existing lockers until we have new ones.
But they'll be secured to something.
Yes, they're going to be attached to, yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of work going on, and it's a busy summer. It's exciting. Okay. Okay, the next item is Slater Principal Search Update. Dr. Maglias.
So I am pleased to report that as of today, we have a candidate for a principal at Slater pending the finalized paperwork, which we expect will happen in the next week and a half. So once this person is on site and everything's finalized, the expectation would be to have him come to the July work session.
Where is he from?
California, came through the NESDEC search and is relocating to Rhode Island, and had other opportunities, but in a final phone call today, we convinced him that Pawtucket was where he wanted to be. Through NESDEC or through this whole process? Through NESDEC, I believe it was 12. Overall, it's been very challenging, and I know in other districts, they're challenged with trying to find administrators. So
Has it come out and has it come out to visit?
no, so he's actually leaving, I believe, tomorrow. He's driving.
Okay, and then but he's accepted the job already?
Yes, pending his finalized paperwork.
And now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with provisions of Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5, which litigation for the purpose of discussing, acting upon RIGL 42-46-5, potential litigation, Kirby McCabe project contract, RIGL 42-46-5, potential litigation, deal with Cornice Company Incorporated, the Pawtucket School Department, Aaron Doobie in her capacity as chairman of the Pawtucket School Committee. Yeah. Good. Second. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Larrabee, seconded by Mr. Nolo. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, I don't gavel. Here, I do gavel. We're now in executive session.
You don't have to worry about that. Okay. Are we ready? Okay, reconvene at the 8:47.
Dinner's waiting.
Huh?
Dinner's waiting.
Ms. Lissy, please call. Ms. Vinola?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to look. Mr. Larrabee?
Yeah.
Mr. Marino?
Yeah.
Ms. Doobie? Yeah. Can you please report out the vote of the executive session?
The committee voted unanimously 5-0 on a matter of the Kirby McCabe project contract to seal the executive session minutes and to adjourn the executive session.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Vinola, by Ms. Graham. All right, so going to all in favor? All in favor? Aye. Signatures.
Yeah, you do go.